Hurricane Ian expected to make landfall in South Carolina just hours from now, bringing a life-threatening storm surge and dangerous winds after gaining strength in the Atlantic. President Biden approved an emergency declaration for the state. Joining me right now is Congresswoman Nancy Mace. She represents South Carolina's 1st District, which is bracing for Ian's wrath. Congresswoman, thanks very much for being here. Are you in South Carolina right now?
I am. I'm at home in Charleston, South Carolina, where we are going to bear the brunt of Hurricane Ian's second landfall today.
Tell me how you're preparing for that, Congresswoman. It's amazing to see the destruction that just took place in Florida. And now the storm, after downgraded to a tropical storm, has re-strengthened and is now a Category 1 hurricane headed for where you are. How are you preparing?
Well, the last couple of days, and I stayed home this week to help my community, our towns prepare, but we were bagging sand to ensure that everyone has the ability to protect themselves against flooding. We just got a flash flood warning. We've been helping folks move their vehicles to higher ground, but especially communicative with our governor, Henry McMaster, all of our mayors. Unfortunately or fortunately, South Carolina's coast is no stranger to storms and hurricanes and tropical storm force winds. This morning, we're facing wind gusts of up to 65 miles per hour, and it hasn't even made landfall yet. We have several hours to go before the worst of it gets here, but the flooding is going to be the worst case scenario for downtown historic Charleston and outlying areas.
And, you know, there isn't much to do in advance for expected flooding. I mean, this was largely a water event, and the water damage is really extensive throughout Florida. So is there anything to get ahead of when you know that it's going to be a water event and the flooding is going to be one of the big challenges?
Well, certainly making sure that you're staying inside and staying on higher ground, moving vehicles. When it rains in Charleston, it floods. And we're looking at a 9-foot high tide right now with another 6 inches of rain and a potential 7-foot storm surge. So we're going to see flooding and potentially major flooding in parts of downtown Charleston and some of the outlying, lower areas that are closer to sea level. Those are going to be issues. And so those are the kinds of things that, we're making sure that our elderly folks, that they're getting assistance to get to higher ground, making sure that if you need to get to a shelter, we have 3 shelters open right now. We have pet shelters as well, and just making sure people are safe and that they're not going to be hurt by the flash flooding or any flooding that is coming in the next few hours, next 6 to 8 hours today.
Well, the shelters are a good idea. I want to get your take on what the declaration from the president means. President Biden declared an emergency in South Carolina ahead of Ian's arrival. What does that give you? And what does that declaration mean on a practical level?
Right. The governor of South Carolina did the emergency declaration on Wednesday. The president approved that yesterday. Our counties as well, locally, Charleston County did its own emergency orders as well. So it'll allow us to get access to federal funding to help with any disaster relief or cleanup. It also allows local municipalities and counties to determine when the wind levels get high enough, and we're already seeing road closures, but bridge closures as well, curfews in the event there's massive flooding and we have any issues locally. They can instill those kinds of curfews as well. You're seeing that in Florida, where the governor and some municipalities and counties, because of the mass flooding, they've had to also install curfews and obviously bridge closings, road closures, access to federal funding. Those are the biggest things. And I want to thank the president for acknowledging that emergency order by Governor McMaster and supporting us during this time.
Yeah, I mean, the sustained winds of 65 to 85 miles an hour is also going to be a major problem. Congresswoman, do you feel you have everything you need ahead of this storm making landfall? From the federal government?
We do.
Red Cross? Okay.
We do. We've been very organized, and for the last 2 days, not only have I been helping local communities and neighbors, get sandbags together, I've been talking with all of our mayors, with our governor, looking at the coordination between federal, state, and local, touring all of our emergency management operations centers, and making sure that everybody is cooking with gas, that we're working and we're all rowing in the same direction, working together. And because we've seen so many storms over the last 30 years, and they've been increasing over the years, whether they're tropical storms or hurricanes, we are very prepared. I feel very confident. I'm grateful to have the leadership in place locally. Our mayors have been rock stars over the last couple of days. People are coming in during off hours, volunteering their time, first responders, everyone coming together. That's what Charleston and South Carolina, what we're all about. We're Team South Carolina, working together, making sure everybody is safe and dry. The one thing I do want to add is watching some of the horrific images of Florida. We saw people going into the ocean in the middle of the storm where they had 100, 150 mile per hour winds. And I just want to encourage people to stay away from the beach, stay away from the ocean, as tempting as it is. Be safe, stay inside, stay dry, and stay on higher ground today.
Yeah, I mean, one of the deaths in Florida, a 72-year-old man in Deltona who drowned because he went outside to try to drain his pool and drowned in trying to do so. So it's very important advice that you're giving. Congresswoman, before we go, let me get your take on the happenings in Washington, as well as your colleagues are going to see this bill to keep the government funded. Are you going to be voting on that? Do you believe that the funding bill should move forward?
Well, Republicans are going to be voting largely against the measure. There are many issues that we have with the legislation. I know one of the issues that are greatly concerning for most Republicans is ensuring that we're not funding 87,000 IRS agents, for example. They're not continuing to waste money. We have massive deficit spending under the Biden administration. It's extremely problematic with inflation and the taxes and the fees that are yet to come for hardworking Americans. And they've not been willing to negotiate with Republicans on the spending bill, and so that's also problematic. And for that reason, you'll see the vast majority of Republicans voting against it.
Yeah, I know one of your colleagues told us earlier that he just got the bill a few hours ago and is being asked to quickly vote on it. He got it 6 hours before. Congressman, thanks very much. Good to see you, and we're praying for you and the people of South Carolina this morning. Nancy Mace joining us this morning. Thank you so much.